All right, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining me here. If you didn't catch the live stream, that is okay because we will be doing more of these. If you want to be a part of the live stream, just click the notification button because I will be doing more and more of these certification type, really just discussions, kind of laid back, no script. So you'll see how well I talk. A way basically to introduce some of the students out there that I help support to some of the certification exams that they might be facing. Because if you're like me, I remember the first exam I took, especially when it comes, I think it would have been this one that we're going to talk about, A+. Man, I tell you, when I got into the exam booth, not knowing exactly what to expect for the first time, I had some kind of idea because I had a good trainer. But it always stuck with me, the fact that these exams can be a little bit nerve-wracking. And I really, when it comes to who I try to support the most, career changers like I was, people that are maybe not coming from an IT industry or an IT background. So with that said, what we're going to do is we're going to take the time and we're going to go into the A+ 1200 series for those of you that are studying the CompTIA for the CompTIA A+ certification. I do want you to know that there's 2 exams that you need to take and pass in order to become A+ certified. So that's what we're going to dive into here in this little live stream that we're doing. Now, along with that discussion, I do want to make mention of myself. My name is Wes Bryan. I have been an IT instructor for almost 15 years now, and I specialize in CompTIA training, and I've also done other types of training, including skills-based training. If you would like to continue the discussion outside of any videos that you watch or, outside of the live stream, I would always encourage you to connect with me up on LinkedIn. You can find me, again, Wesley A. Bryan at LinkedIn. You can see here I have posted my email address as well, too. You can get a hold of me at wes.bryan1@gmail.com. I'm also on X, and I'm posting all kinds of stuff up on X as well, too. You can get a hold of me there or connect with me at WS_Bryan1, the number 1. And then finally, I'd like to bring some attention to our Discord channel. The Discord channel is up and running, and it has a lot of goodies up there, a variety of different technology feeds, including things around cybersecurity and study resources. It also is a way to meet with other people that are a part of the community too, and lend your support and get support there too. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let's one more shameless plug, and then we'll get into it. If you like what you see here, remember, like, subscribe, share, comment. It is always important. And if you have something that you would like to talk about here on a live stream, or maybe in just a video, leave me a comment below, and it's always encouraged. Click the notification button too, and that'll help you be aware when we are doing live streams. You can be a part of it. I really look forward to that. So let's go ahead and let's dive in to what it is that we're here to discuss. Let's get down to brass tacks, and that is the CompTIA A+ 1200 series that we're going to be discussing. And when we look at the CompTIA 1200 series, what we're going to see is that there are 2 different exams that you must take and pass. And what I'm here to do is just talk a little bit about, some of those requirements. We'll do a little bit more of a deep dive into each individual exam, discussing some of the objectives that you should be aware of, and really the level and depth that you should be aware of. For instance, what's the difference between a compare and contrast and a given a scenario configure, type of objective. We'll definitely drill into those. And if that's something you'd like to see, including potential other exams that you might be facing, leave that in the comments too. So we're going to talk a little bit about the very first one. When we look at the A+ 1200 series, the first exam that you will take, you don't have to, but it is encouraged, is the Core 1, A+ Core 1 exam. And that the exam code is 220-1201. So definitely know a little bit about your exam codes, and that's what I'm here for, to help you out too. And when we look at the breakdown here, the breakdown of your, I should say, 1201 exam is going to be about 13% for your mobile devices, And then networking is going to be a very important part of this because, let's face it, today in IT, if you want to support infrastructure, you have to know networking. There's not really many computers out there that aren't attached to networks unless they're, for security reasons, they're air-gapped. And then we are going to be required to know about 25% of the overall exam for hardware, virtualization, and cloud computing. Now, this one is, the least of, the overall domains, and like I was saying, in other videos, we'll go into what it is that you really need to know there. Just to give you a little teaser here, it's going to be explaining, right? It's going to be summarizing. So that's the level of depth you would need in something like these technologies. And then the majority of this exam is really going to be in your ability to do hardware and network troubleshooting. Now, I do want to take a second here, and I do want to stop just for a second on this one, because one of the things that has been very consistent across this 1201 exam, and specifically in the troubleshooting objectives, as well as the A+ certification, I should say, is the troubleshooting methodology. Up until the 1200 series, in every revision of this that I've taught, going back to I believe 4501, that 500 series, right, is that there is an established systematic approach to troubleshooting, and it's called the CompTIA troubleshooting model. I will tell you, or methodology, I should say. Either way, I'm used to saying troubleshooting module. Either way, I will tell you it's still in Network Plus, but it has been removed from the A+ requirements. However, I would encourage you to get the A+ objectives, and this will give you the ability to kind of look at what their explanation is again, and kind of taking a look at that 6 to 7 step process. So it will help you out, but I do want you to know that the troubleshooting methodology has formally been removed from the body of objectives inside of A+. But even though those objectives have been removed, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the nuances and just what you should know about basic troubleshooting, you might still show up. All right, so that takes a little bit of care of the A+ Core 1 exam. Again, remember exam code 220-1201. You'll hear me say that a lot so that you'll be familiar with it. Next, we have the CompTIA A+, Core 2, and the Core 2 is the 1202 exam. Now, this one's going to be focused more on your operating system side, software side, I should say, and you'll see that we're going to, when we look at this one, this is going to be operating systems, about 28% of your overall exam objectives, and makes up a good portion of the weights when it comes to the different domains, and the same thing goes with Security Plus, or excuse me, Security. Security Plus is another certification that I'm that I'm also preparing to do a live stream on it. So we are doing a blending or a crossing of the streams, total protonic reversal. So brain fart there on that one. But security, when we look at security, that's also 28% of the overall exam. So you can see that right here, we're dealing with the majority of your requirements for the exam. Then we get into software troubleshooting, and with software troubleshooting, this is also another weighty one. Not quite as high as the first two, but 23%, still something that you definitely want to focus on when it comes to the objectives. And like I said, in another video, we'll go ahead and we'll mention this. We'll talk a little bit about that in more of a deep dive on each individual exam and some of the things that you should be aware of for those exams too. And then that leads us to what I typically call the red tape, the bureaucratic proportion of your A+ training. And as I joke, joking aside, this is when we talk about operational procedures. It has very, very important objectives in there, such as personnel safety, proper computer and component handling, incident response, basic incident response procedures as well too. So very, very important, documentation, things around that nature as well. And that does make up the majority of, well, actually every one of the domains. Again, we will go into these individually a little bit deeper in other videos and other live streams too that you can be a part of. Now, I do want to make mention across both of these that when we talk about the operating systems that are required, go ahead and be aware that you're gonna have to know Windows 11. Windows 11 is important. Now, I will also tell you, depending on when you're watching this video, Windows 10 is coming to its EOL, end of life. And that means it's no longer going to receive security updates. Outside of a contract and paying more money, there'll be extended security updates that'll be available, but it'll be for a price. So that being said, the reason I mention that is because some of you, depending on when you're taking this exam, you will maybe see that, hey, do I need to know Windows 10 because Windows 10 is expiring? And the answer is yes. Unfortunately, I do want you to be aware of both operating systems, and there is some Mac OS that you should be aware of, as well as Linux too, some basic Linux features. So just kind of throw those in there so that you can be aware of those. So with that, let's go ahead and let's kind of double back because even though I said we're not going really deep into this one, I still want you to know a little bit about each one of those exam details too. So when we look at the exam details for the very first one, right, we talk about the A+ Core 1 exam, that is the 220-1201 exam code. The questions are going to be a maximum of 90 questions, and the type of questions, you'll see in the exam objectives that they call them multiple choice and performance-based. I want to talk a little bit about more about what that means. Now, I also want you to know that the duration, the length of the test is 90 minutes. However, that doesn't include, I think there's about another half hour, and it's 15 minutes or so in the beginning to take a survey and a certain amount of time at the end to take a survey. That doesn't affect the actual testable time, where the clock and the timer is ticking. So I do want you to be aware of that too, so that it doesn't catch you off guard. Now, back to the question types, I do want to talk a little bit about that because you'll see if you reference, for instance, CompTIA's exam objectives, they will talk about multiple choice and performance-based, right? Well, they're all multiple choice, right? There's going to be more than one single choice that you're given. So I want to just clarify that, and we'll also talk about that towards the end of the discussion here. Kind of what that looks like. So when we say multiple choice, I want you to understand there's multiple choice single answer, right? Just choose one, right? You don't have to choose anything else, but there's also multiple choice multiple answer, right? And the good thing about taking a CompTIA exam is they're not trying to trick you. They want you to prove that you have that about 12 months experience based on your success on the exam. So multiple answer is exactly what it says. They'll tell you choose 2 or choose 3 so that you can be just again aware of that before it comes up. Now, the next one is going to be performance-based questions. And when we look at performance-based questions, these are a variety of different things. It could be, something where you have to do a basic configuration of a component, or maybe you have to do like a drag and drop. Maybe you have a diagram that has a variety of different network devices, right? And some of the things that you need to know for the very first A+ 1201 exam are being able to compare and contrast the network devices. So they might give you some kind of exhibit and says, hey, take this list here of hardware components and then, put them in the diagram according to whatever their purpose is, their functionality is. So you can see those, those type of questions as well too. Now, when it comes to recommended experience, it is important to understand that if you are just getting into the industry, then you might have a little bit of backfill to do just on basic terminology. And I always try to let students know that, exam candidates, because, it isn't uncommon for exam candidates to say, how much do I need to study? I can't tell you that. So I encourage you to take the exam objectives and ask yourself honestly, go through them like a checklist and say, hey, if I was given a question, some kind of scenario-based question or maybe a multiple choice type question, could I answer the questions? How do I feel, and be honest with that, right? Because that's going to give you an indication of where your studies are. So if you don't have 12 months of hands-on experience in an IT support, specialist type job or role, I would encourage you to keep in mind that you do have to maybe do a little bit more studying than somebody that's been in IT for a bit. But the great thing is, while it's a recommendation, it certainly isn't a requirement, because I was a restaurant fast food restaurant manager when I took my very first A+ exam, and I did not come from a background in IT, but I backfilled it with a lot of training, a lot of flashcards to learn the terminology. So I just want you to be aware of that. Now, when we look at passing, what does it take to pass this? Well, CompTIA's grading score is between 100 and 900. I've always joked around and said, hey, they're going to give you at least 100 points if you show up, whether you answer a question or not. So this is going to be 675, again, between on that scale between 100 and 900 points. So be aware of that. Now, so that's a little bit about your A+ Core 1. Again, remember 220-1201 exam. Let's go ahead and let's change over. Let's jump to the other side of the tracks here, and let's talk a little bit about the second exam, or the Core 2 exam. The Core 2 exam, the exam code is 220-1202, like you've heard me mention a lot. Probably going to be tired of hearing that exam code by the end of this video, and certainly by the end of our A+ series that we're doing. So when we look at this exam is going to follow a lot of the same format that the previous exam followed. So great thing with that, right? Maximum of 90 questions. When we look at the length of the test, it's going to be 90 minutes max. Again, those surveys on the head and tail of the exam don't directly affect this overall 90-minute score, 90 minutes test length. Now, when we look at the question types, I want you to keep in mind, too, the same thing that I mentioned before. Remember, yes, they're all multiple choice, but we have either multiple choice single answer or we have multiple choice multiple answer. And just like the A+ 220-1201 exam, CompTIA is really good about letting you know, hey, out of these, this is how many you need to choose, right? They're not trying to, trick you or be shady or any way, right? They want you to just be able to prove that you have that recommended experience and knowledge. And then they're going to also do things like performance-based questions likewise too. So not much is changing when you look at the overall format so far, right? So far what we've changed really is nothing more than the exam code. Recommended experience is still the same. It is going to be 12 months of hands-on experience in an IT support or specialist job role. However, one of the things that I'd also keep you in mind, check out the channel because I'll show you how to build a virtualized environment so that you can download for free and install some of these operating systems, and you can work with it in your certification endeavors as well too. All right, so next up, what do we have? Let me just look over here at our time, kind of keep an eye on how we're doing. Yes, so one more thing that we have to talk about this exam, and that is what is the passing score. The big change here, right, is the fact that we now have now a score of 700, right? So we go from 675 to 700, and you're going to see that too as we get into and talk a little bit about other certifications from CompTIA, like their Network Plus, their Security Plus, Pen Test CISA, and even the Security X exam, which is just a rebranded CAS Plus. You're going to notice that these requirements go up to where, this A Plus, we're starting out at 675, second one 700, Network Plus is going to be, I believe it's 725. Don't quote me on that. And Security Plus is 750, right? So you'll start to see that the requirements to pass, right? The passing score goes up a little bit on that one as well. So the big difference here between these two exams, I want you to remember with the 220-1201 exam, that is going to be a 675 passing score. With the Core 2 exam or the 220-1202 exam, that's going to be 700, right? So the exam code changes, the passing score changes, the format does not change. Now, speaking of that format, a few of the other things that I want to be able to talk about are those different question types so that you can be aware of them and they don't catch you off guard. So, especially when you're talking about answering something in a more, stressed type environment. I want you to be aware of them, but let's go ahead and let's caffeinate here with my Sophia. There we go. And let's talk about some of the different question types. All right. The first one I want to address is going to be the multiple choice single answer question format. So we have a question here, right? So you are helping a friend make pizza at home. And spreading the tomatoes, and after spreading the tomato sauce on the dough, what should you do next to continue building the pizza? Well, with a single answer, I want you to pay attention. Notice the radio buttons here, right? When you look at the radio buttons, right, the little circles, that's going to let you know and indicate to you that that is a single answer question, right? And that's what they're looking for. They're looking for a single answer on that one. And that differs from a still multiple choice, right? Both of them have been multiple choice, but multiple answers, right? When we look at multiple answers, let's take a question that you might see. Now, maybe not this question on pizza, right? But you're preparing the ingredients to make a pizza from scratch. Which of the following ingredients are typically used to make the pizza dough? Notice how it tells you choose two. I mean, that's a key indicator that it is a multiple answer question. But again, I understand test anxiety and stress. So notice the difference on the dialog boxes for this one, or the answer choices, right? Notice that they're squares, and that's typically indicative of the fact that what they want you to do is have more than one answer. So it will be flour and yeast on this one. That's going to be our multiple answer. Now, I'm going to talk about some performance-based questions too, and I think that's important too. When we talk about performance-based questions, you know, what might you face? Well, I talked about drag and drops, right, where maybe they give you a series of steps like such, right? So here's our question, right? You are preparing a homemade pizza, you know, and the steps below are jumbled. It might not even say that. Drag and drop the steps in the correct order to serve a pizza, right? And then it gives you some kind of exhibit and what it's up, you know, it's up to you to turn around and put those steps in the appropriate order, right? And then once that's done, we move on in the question. So that's an example, basic example of a performance-based question. Remember, drag and drops don't have to necessarily be an ordered list, right? It could be, you know, maybe a motherboard, and they say, hey, put these components on the right side, or the, you know, the right location, right? Maybe your CPU versus your north and south bridge, your chipset versus the RAM slots versus an I/O panel on the back. If you're in networking, right, you're in a networking objective. Again, like I said, dragging and dropping the appropriate network devices and putting them right in the right order, you know, according to, you know, the diagram that you've been presented, will be another example of one as well. So that's an example of a drag and drop, right? Now let's move on to another performance-based type question, right? And this might be where you actually are given some level of configuration that you have to do, right? And so, for instance, we've got a question here. It says the pizza oven, you know, temperature control should be set to 2, 3, 10, and 6 to operate appropriately, right? Configure the controls appropriately, right? So they might give you something like this where, you know, you have a certain amount of configuration that you need to do, and you need to make sure that each individual components are set to the right, you know, set to the right controls, the right configuration, in order to, you know, complete this task. Now, I do want to make mention here, good test-taking skills on this one. If you get into one of these performance-based questions and you think you've made a configuration mistake, that's okay, all right? There is typically going to be a reset button somewhere within that exhibit, somewhere in that configuration that allows you to reset that by just pressing it. And when you press it, what happens is it essentially resets the lab environment back to its original state, allowing you to go back through the process and reconfigure it appropriately so that you can, you know, basically configure it the way you think it should be. So there is a reset button. I want you to remember that reset button because it can come in handy, really handy too. I know there was one, not a CompTIA exam, it was another exam that I was taking that did have a reset button, and boy, did that help me out a lot when it came to making sure I had that configuration appropriately. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is a concept known as mark for review. All right, some tests, some exams that you will take, they do not give you the ability to mark a question for review and come back to it later. All right. For instance, Cisco is one of those where you need to know the answer, and you can't mark it for review. You answer the question and you move on, right? However, with CompTIA, you're going to notice that there is a little box typically within the body of that question, maybe in the upper portion of your screen, that allows you to mark that answer for review. Now, why do I make mention of that? Because if you come to a question that you don't know the answer, all right, first of all, mark the answer. Plain and simple, mark the answer, because if you don't mark an answer and you don't get to come back to it, maybe time runs out or you forget, you won't forget. If you've got an incomplete answer, the exam platform will let you know. But if you don't mark it, it's going to be wrong, right? So mark it with your best answer and then use the mark for review and come back to it at the end, right? You're going to have a mark for review exam screen, right, at the end of this exam, where it gives you all of the answers that that you've marked for review, or the ones that are incomplete as well. So we don't want any incomplete answers, because an unmarked answer is going to be wrong. At least go with your gut, give yourself the chance to get it right. That's very, very important. All right. So mark for review, very, very important. You can go back to it. The other thing that's good about the mark for review is the fact that sometimes questions that maybe you feel like you know, again, go with your gut on that one. You've done the training, you've done the work. The other one sometimes that you might happen is a question down the way might jog your memory and say, oh, I remember what that question was, all right? Or I was right, or no, I wasn't right. I need to go back and change it. So when you mark it for review, you can come back to it. I've had some questions in exams that I've taken go from the point of not knowing the answer, like I didn't even have the answer. And that's a little frustrating sometimes, I know, as well, too, especially as a trainer. When you go, you're like, I know I should know that, but I don't know that, right? So I do want you to keep that in mind. Mark an answer that is, if it, you know, whether you know it or not. And Adventures with Steven out there, thank you so much for taking the time to join and type in. It is a pleasure to have you here as well, too. All right, so that is a little bit about, you know, what I really want you all to be aware of when it comes to the A+ exams, right? What have we talked about here, right? We've talked about the two different exams, the domain breakdowns for each one at a high level. We've also talked about the exam requirements as well. You know, what can you expect when it comes to the length of the test, the passing score, you know, and I also wanted you to be familiar with some of the potential type of questions that you could see too. Now, we are going to go into, in the future, additional deep dives on each one of the exams that I create content for and have created content for in the past, because I want you to be aware of it, and I want you to be, comfortable. And it's just my way to give back to the community, that have helped me a lot as well. So keep in mind, if you do have additional, maybe certification exams that you want to talk about and you want to see in a live stream, or even just a video on, right? All of these videos, they're going to go into our live stream playlist, so you can watch them again for sure. But we're going to go into other ones like each individual CompTIA A+ exam. We'll really dive into the 1201, talk about some of the objectives, talk about the what I like to call the Bloom's taxonomy of it, right? Because there's a certain level that you need to know of on these exams. And I want to make sure that you are, when it comes to studying, where can you itemize your time and become the most successful? Well, I can help you out with that too. Again, just by just doing a deep dive of the objectives. All right, everybody. Well, that is going to do it for our live stream. Thank you for those of you that I can see have joined. Keep in mind to also click the notification button so that if when I am going live, you can be aware of it. You can join the conversation, maybe chat in the chat room there as well. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. And Furious George, thank you so much. Always welcome, to have everybody here. Again, if you want to take this a little bit farther, I'm not charging for any of this, but jump on over to our Discord server. I'm trying to help build a community of people who really, really like technology, as well as supporting other people in their training and endeavors. I know it's helped me tremendously in my career, and I want to give back to you all as well. So with that, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me, and there's plenty more to come. Your support is always welcome, and thank you for taking the time.